Good, recorded? Okay, great, thank you, Darrell. Good morning, this is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals Public Review Session for October 29th, 2018. We'll begin with the appeals calendar, item number 1, 2017-298, 1558 3rd Avenue, Manhattan.
So we heard this application last time, and we had asked the appellants to provide responses. I'm going to first read our chair's comments. She's not here today, so she has provided her comments. I'll start with that. Then I'll read my comments, and I'll follow up with all the other commissioners. Chair Perlmutter's comments are, this is a very important subject, and if we think of this as applicable prospectively instead of retroactively, it is more reasonable to contemplate. As I stated at the last hearing, the developer here relied on high level of DOB review of the specific questions, and while I agree that detrimental reliance isn't considered in an appeal, it is worth recognizing that owner probably have a variance case here. Furthermore, I think we also have the fact of neighbors sitting on their rights for nearly a year after the permit was issued and not even attempting to obtain a TRO until the building had more or less reached the height it is today. Appellants made very thorough argument and legal briefing on the subject, citing many in-state and out-of-state cases to support their positions. My inclination is that these sorts of subdivisions can be allowed, but only if they are not done to eliminate street wall, yard, sky exposure plane regulations that would otherwise apply. Allowing them would create unexpected streetscape and rear yard conditions. Ultimately, Department of City Planning should clarify by amending the zoning resolution. Furthermore, whereas here, there is a clear reliance by the developer on the subdivided lot for building operations, whether legally required or not, subdivision should not be permitted. That is different condition from one where the developer has a zoning lot and purchases access easement from a neighboring zoning lot that was and is not under the developer's control. Department of Building has demonstrated that it has put into place a form of quote-unquote unbuildable lot principle. So if a subdivision runs with an easement that strips the lot to be separated of all potential for development as here, it isn't logical for Department of Buildings to determine that a neighbor would purchase such a lot. Department of Building assumed wrongly, it turns out in this case, that the lot retained for transfer its pertinent development rights. But I don't think the potential to sell development rights to the lot next door from an otherwise unbuildable lot should factor into whether the lot is subdivisible or not, and the zoning regulation text doesn't specify the required depth of a zoning lot, so a 1-foot sliver would have been permissible according to it. Department of Buildings also has to be aware that we have many variance applications as the BSA where a successor entitled to a substandard previously subdivided lot claims hardship, having purchased a lot that cannot be developed due to the lot's shallow depth or width that prevent any sort of practical income producing development thereon. As to the sham property exchange, the sad news is that it would be easy to persuade Department of Buildings that the transaction is arm's length by using different corporate names, addresses, and signatories. It is probably asking too much of Department of Buildings to dig behind the deeds or to review the zoning lot development agreement, ZELDA, or offering plan. But it is very clear in this case that the subdivision stripped lot 138 of all development options and of the values of its transfer of development rights by disallowing future mergers, and Department of Building was unaware of it. Department of Building's recent submission, it states in its, the sentence incomplete. Okay. Regarding the so-called gimmicks described by the appellants, I am not sure the sliver example could be used as an interior lot for firefighting reasons. 8% of the total perimeter, 8% of the total perimeter of the building must have actual street frontage under the building code, and there is also GCL 36. I don't believe that zoning lot subdivisions should be permitted unless the lot is actually buildable. And this one is not, even for a newsstand, due to the contractual limitations. Lots without street frontages should also not be permitted to be created by subdivision. Since Department of Building can't dig into offering plans and the like, a party seeking to subdivide a zoning lot into a substandard lot that is only susceptible of development by tiny single-use buildings should be required to record a declaration committing not to strip the lot of its development potential. Such restrictive declarations are common for Department of Buildings to require of lot line windows, access easements, and the like. Department of Building argues that the sliver law was not intended to apply to buildings that is on a large lot with avenue frontage. Whether or not this is the case, I don't think Department of Buildings would have permitted the building form as now presented had the building lot included a front lot line on 88th Street. But I do agree that the sliver law does not apply in this case, and that street walls facing a street in 23692 refers to frontage along a zoning lot with the front lot line coincident with the street line. This would apply to the tower on a base provision as well. I don't agree with the owner's argument that this case is like the Sky House case, where there was no guidance whatsoever in the zoning resolution about what City Planning Commission or the City Council thought mechanical space should be, or why the floor area related to them was exempted. So the board has no legislative intent upon which to base a decision and had to rely on the text alone. But here the board can discern a good deal of legislative intent from the zoning resolution, including the various bulk regulations that depend on the street frontage of a zoning lot for their application. The drafters of the relevant sections of the resolution didn't contemplate the proposed condition, and if they had, would have written clearer text to prevent it. And I don't think with respect to a zoning lot subdivision, you can say that the text is unambiguous. What is meant by the proviso that all resulting zoning lots and all building thereon comply with all applicable provisions of the zoning resolution? And that's a question. That the zoning lot be large enough to permit any use permitted in the zoning district and comply with all front and rear yard regulations, or only that park, bench, or newsstand need to be developable. The text directs that the lot be buildable. Is this the case in this particular subject matter? Not actually. So that is the chairs. Now I'm going to start with mine. So with regards to prospectively versus retroactively, my take is this. Department of Buildings' requirement is to administer the zoning resolution. In this case, it has. Owner relied on Department of... You can't... Okay. Oops.
Keep going.
Department of Buildings' requirement is to administer the zoning resolution. In this case, it has. Owner relied on Department of Buildings' determination to build, unlike the Pearl Binder case where based on DOB's audit, it was determined that the permit was issued incorrectly. In this case, the subdivision of Lot 38 was consistent with the administrative regulation and the zoning regulations. Whatever decision the board takes, it should be applicable prospectively instead of retroactively. Regarding the legality of the zoning lot subdivision, the appellant agrees, the neighborhood coalition that is, agrees that the zoning resolution does not prohibit unbuildable lots. However, it did not refer to the applicable policy and procedure of the Department of Buildings regarding subdivision of tax lot, and that is specific to the OPPN number 30/90, which is the applicable one. And specifically it states, for improved property, a lot with existing buildings application must be filed at DOB for new subdivision to determine that the new subdivision would not result in new non-compliance on the existing lot that is improved with the building. Department of Finance does not require an approval of the subdivision of a vacant lot from Department of Buildings. A subdivision of a vacant tax lot does not need DOB approval, which is primarily for determining compliance. So technically, as part of the administrative process, a newly created vacant lot, whether in an R district or a C or M district, does not have to be zoning compliant, which while appears to be contrary to the 1210 definition of a zoning lot, that is, a zoning lot must be subdivided into 2 or more zoning lots, and all buildings hereon shall comply with all the applicable provisions of the resolution, it is not. For a tract of land to be developable, it would only at the time of issuance of a building permit have to pass the compliance test. For 1210 definition of a zoning lot, minimum 10-foot contiguity is required, and that too would have to be tested at the time of the issuance of building permit. I agree with the chair that we should not be knowingly allowing subdivision that would not be compliant with the intent of the zoning resolution. As DOB in its documents has stated, the concept of the zoning lot is a mechanism to develop the land and the city. I would, though, add that inasmuch in an as-of-right manner as possible. This matter should be addressed by the Department of City Planning through further clarifications of the regulations. Based on the DOB's clarification with regards to the formation of the zoning lot, I agree that the subdivision was conducted appropriately. However, I still have a question as to why DOB issued a notice to revoke the subdivision permit and require tax lot 138 to increase in depth from 4 feet to 10 feet, since lot 138 was not recognized as a zoning lot as per DOB statement, unless I'm speculating that the owner wanted to have the option to use the lot in future for development or future Zelda, and based on that, DOB asked that the lot dimension be increased to minimum 10 feet per 1210 definition subsections C and D of the zoning lot definition. Regarding the sham lease, the appellant is relying on the offering plan, the neighborhood coalition that is relying on the offering plan as an evidence of a sham with regards to the zoning lot subdivision. I do not see the similarities with this and the sham leases used to circumvent the provision of on advertising boards by converting them into accessory signs, accessory to the businesses located in the building. I agree with the owner that the offering plan is a private disclosure document to the condo buyer and is not relevant. I also want to note that the offering plan cannot override zoning or municipality regulations, and I assume the plan can be more restrictive, but it cannot override the zoning regulation. Misuse of the regulations regarding subdivision. The Neighborhood Coalition in its documentation has stated and in its public testimony has stated that it would have a citywide implication and has provided several sample situations of how such a misapplication of the regulation could be applied that would benefit developers. I will get to the specifics of the samples provided, but I just want to point out that such applications of the regulations has been rare, and as no similar cases have been cited by any of the parties. The sample cases, such as the corner lot case that was provided, I do not believe is realistic because, as we all know and as we hear in many of our cases, the more lot frontages that is allowed for a zoning lot, that would allow it would allow more legal lot line windows. And whereas the sample that was provided would result in a very unrealistic floor plate that would be 100 feet to 70 foot deep, which with only one side lot line, legal lot line windows. And this will result in very deep floor plates, and that is not marketable and will not have marketable layouts. So I'm not sure if it's realistic. It's a good theoretical exercise, but it's not realistic. Similarly, elimination of a portion of a side lot to avoid providing side yard requirements. First of all, only in R1s and R5 district, R1 to R5 district, side yard is required, and these are low-density districts with very low FAR requirements. So maximizing the FAR in a small lot is paramount. And based on various 73-622 cases that comes before the Board of Standards and Appeals, I can clearly say that we have never seen a property owner trying to shave off a side lot to avoid providing side yard requirement. We actually see the contrary. They try to keep as much of the lot as possible and try to build on the side yard through whatever zoning mechanism that would be permitted. That would permit it. I'm also not sure I agree with the 10-foot wide sample sliver lot along a side lot line that was provided, as I think, again, like the corner lot, it would create a very unrealistic footprint, and it would not be a marketable layout. As DOB has stated, the concept of the zoning lot is, and I'm repeating it because I really do believe in this, and it was a good statement. As DOB stated, the concept of a zoning lot is a mechanism to develop land in the city. The sample provided would create zoning lots that are undevelopable in the city, will be contrary to the intent of the zoning regulations, and more importantly, given the limited development land the city has to build upon and the land cost that is at a premium, I do not believe it is realistic, and nor will it become common occurrence to see such exploitation of the regulations. With regards to the alternate massing on the development site, at the last hearing, I had stated that all applicable zoning regulations pertaining to street frontages, street wall on the development site has been met, and the DOB has, in his documentations, has clarified that, and that it meets, and that the development site has met the street wall requirement, and that a street wall requirement, furthermore, street wall requirement does not apply to the portion of the lot abutting the rear of lot 138. I also want to state that a typical tower on a base building ranges in height somewhere in the 30 to 33 stories. And the alternate massing as proposed by the Neighborhood Coalition is feasible, and it is within that typical tower on a base massing that we have seen at Department of City Planning, and it is feasible. However, I also think it's a little bit speculative, because if the developer wanted to achieve a reasonable development return on that property, they may have confirm the zoning lot in a different way to achieve a similar return. So at the end of the day, the bulk may have been almost same, or maybe a one floor high or one floor low, but it would have been compliant with the tower on a base. And I just want to say something, that when I was at city planning, and we used to get calls from the neighborhoods asking us, I have this vacant land, it's on the avenue frontage, and mostly in the Upper East Side, what could be built. And based on the regulations, we used to advise them that a tower on a base would be allowed, and the tower on a base formation would be somewhere in the range of what the heights are, 30 to 33, and it would have a base up to a height of 65 feet, then a tower and such. So I see this building very much being in the form of that, and consistent with the tower on a base building was intended to be. So with that, what I would conclude with is that any interpretation of the specific zoning regulation with regards to subdivision will have a larger implication. And in my opinion, if any changes ought to be made, they should be done by the City Planning Commission, who has the authority to write their zoning regulations and understand their larger implications at a citywide level. So.
I just wanted to say, in addition to what the Vice Chair said, is that the difficulty I have in being convinced by the appellant's argument has to do with the question of intent and sham. And I think that although tax lot 138's changing dimensions throughout this process is not necessarily evidence of intent to defraud or sham. And I think that that's a very subjective conclusion made by the appellant, and one that I'm not willing to buy into at this point in time. I think that DOB had changing requirements throughout the analysis as to what a buildable lot would be, and I think that the developer was just trying to meet the requirements by DOB for Lot 38 to be considered a developable lot, and that is not necessarily a sham to evade zoning regulations. I think that after the fact, if it turned out that Lot 138 was then recombined with the original tax lot, that might have been considered a sham. But I think that at this point in time, we can't read into future actions, especially since as the condo offering plan has changed throughout time, it's actually given its development rights back into tax lot 138, and that it can actually sell its rights to the neighboring property, and it can be developed. So that, to me, is a basic disagreement I have with the appellant's argument, and so I just wanted to add that to what the Vice Chair said.
Commissioner Shetta?
Yeah, I agree with both the Vice Chair and Commissioner Brown. I believe I may think for a moment that the reason for this, or from the offering plan, someone could conclude that the purpose of this subdivision was to just bypass some regulations in the zoning resolution. However, this is not like a clear cut. It could be or it cannot be. So it's not like 100% clear whether that was the intention. And in addition to that, I believe the subdivision process itself was legit based on the documents that we looked at. And I'm not sure why did the applicant wait for all that time? The building, as far as I understand, the building is now way far above ground, and I'm not sure what was the reason for waiting all this time. So I'm tending not to look at intentions, but look at facts and regulations.
My exception is a legal one. While I agree with that the board should not infer intent or nefarious intent by that matter, I don't think we should ignore it either. There's little argument that this lot was created solely for the purpose of circumventing the applicable zoning resolution sections. An analogy of a shell company with regard to other areas of law is not unfounded here. I'm uncomfortable rewarding disingenuous creativity to the detriment of the community. And this is especially true in light of the owner's own statement that a similar compliant building could have been created in the absence of the subdivided lot. Again, it seems pretty clear to me why this lot was created. And if they had, I'll leave it like that for now.
Okay, thank you.
Everyone?
Yes, thank you.
Decision items on the SOC calendar. Item number 2, 19705BZ, 813 Manhattan. 813 Broadway, sorry, Manhattan.
Okay. Just give me a second. So we did get a revised submission where the applicant has responded to the questions we had raised. They have revised the drawings and have updated the plans where the floor area chart specifically has, there's some reduction in the floor area. We had some concerns about the wall energy deduction. That also has been revised. There was also some concern about the bulkhead, the mechanical bulkhead stair and exterior wall, how that was being calculated. That has been revised. Similarly, the mechanical bulkhead of the elevator, that has been reduced. There's been a reduction also of the stair at the commercial space. So all the things that we had pointed out at the previous hearings as to the deductions have been addressed, and I think I'm okay. I'm just looking towards the commissioners.
I'm fine.
You're fine?
Yeah, I'm fine as far as we're gonna put a condition, as we discussed during the last hearing, that there's gonna be no change in the previously approved floor/sellable floor area. So I'm fine with it.
Commissioner Shetta?
I have no
I'm
objection.
sorry, Shibata.
I have no objection. I'm fine with this application.
Item number 3, 16-12BZ, 184 Nostrand Avenue, Brooklyn.
Just give me a second.
Decision item.
So they have submitted a revised plan. In that, the elevator along the stair number 1 has been removed from the roof plan, and including the elevator mechanical room. Though the elevator 1 is not going to the mic, and these are my questions, though the elevator 1 is not going to the roof, the elevator bulkhead has not been revised accordingly. The elevator located by the stair 2 is now shown as an elevator mechanical room, and the elevator runs only from the basement to the first floor. So want to clarify that per the revised plan, there would be no elevators to the roof. I want that confirmation, and if the applicant can revise the plan where it eliminates elevator bulkhead of elevator 1 prior to tomorrow's hearing, that would be helpful. However, we have an outstanding issue, and that is the ECB violation. While I do see that, and I didn't check as of today, as of the submission period, 21,600 was paid off, and it has paid off 4 violations, but based on the recent BIS data, there's still outstanding 6 BCB violations. So there were 6 ECB violations that were paid off, there are still 2 remaining. And I would like to get an update on that, and until those are resolved, we cannot vote on this.
Do you anticipate you wanting to reopen tomorrow, or
Yes.
just confirmation?
Yes, unless we get any submission that says ECB violation has been paid off,
And the revised plan?
and the revised plan,
Okay.
we can then move ahead. Thus far, we may have to open it. The other one is the current bus parking. The lease we got a document that says the same old lease would apply. I looked at the old lease, and the initial lease, the term was dated from 7/26/2016. The lease dated from 7/26/2016 is from 9/15/2016, ending on 9/15/2021. So if, let's say, we were to approve this project tomorrow, construction will take at least 18 months. By the time we're looking into it, there's only about a year for this lease term for a bus parking. I don't think that's what we had intended when we started out, so this lease term has to be extended out beyond 2021. And if that can be executed before and presented to us, we might be in a position to close and vote it out, otherwise we will have to open it.
Well, it's already closed, but,
Sorry, we will have to
Defer it,
vote,
you mean?
we'll have to, yeah, we'll have to
Defer it.
defer it, I'm sorry.
thank you.
Any comments?
No other comments.
Anyone else? Move on.
Yes, please.
Continued hearing items, item number 4, 67753BZ, 6128 Fresh Meadow Lane, Queens.
So the applicant, as per our direction, has notified the community board and the public officials of the hearing. They have revised the application. They have revised the application. Thank you. This is not something I do every day. They have removed the. Sorry, just give me 1 second. Yeah. Including the removal of the fence between the site and the adjacent property at lot 52, and they have also updated the operating hours of the auto repair establishment. The fence between the lot and the lot number 52 was removed 20 years ago, so the drawing now reflects that. And the current hours of operation is Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Saturday, 8 to 3. And the gates are closed at the closing time. However, the towing operation is 24/7. And per previous approval for extension, our hour was limited to 8 to 5 daily. And I guess that also applied to the towing. So we do have to make that distinction between the two operations. And this change in the hour is to allow the towing truck, allow the 24/7 towing truck.
They've also filed an alt-1 to get a C of O.
Yes, they have filed an alt-1, thank you. And DOB issued issued a notice of objection, and the applicant needs to expeditiously file the approved resolution and plan to DOB to obtain the updated COB.
So the only thing outstanding is the
That's the only
approval here.
thing. Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah. Now, community board had recommended a 5-year term and not a 10-year because of the parking of the towing vehicle. What I would like the applicant tomorrow to provide a little bit of clarity as to how the tow truck operation happens. And there were some concerns raised that the tow trucks are parked on the side street, on the sidewalk, and that they're coming in and out all the time. So I would like a little bit of clarification as to the operation plan with regards to the towing and how it would not create it would not result in blocking the sidewalk, operations that would result in loud noise and disturb the residential neighbors in the rear. So if the applicant can talk us through that, that would be helpful, or provide a document, we can then include that as a condition also. Any comments?
I wouldn't be opposed to having a tight leash on this and having it come back in 5 years.
Is your microphone on?
It is.
Now it is.
Okay, I wouldn't be opposed to having a tight leash on this and having it come back pursuant to the recommendation of the board.
So 5 years.
5 years.
I agree. I think given that in the prior approval, we were only looking at it as an auto repair. Now that we have a towing operation, we do not know how that is going to work in a community which has residential uses. So we may want to observe it closely and see how it has functioned with all its conditions it is recommending itself on itself, actually. Okay.
Item number 5, 60-82BZ, 6011 Queens Boulevard, Queens. Extension of term.
Yes. Yeah.
They did provide a photo of the improved landscaping. I would request the applicant, I don't know if any new photos were provided or not, I would request the applicant to provide a little bit more photos from the 44th Avenue side, because most of the landscaping is on the 44th Avenue side, so that we can get a better picture of how that landscaping has been addressed. So that they can bring that to the hearing, that would be great. Thank you. Any comments?
Nothing further.
Okay.
Item number 6, 540-84BZ, 341 Soundview Avenue, the Bronx. We have an adjournment.
Okay. I just want to know this is the third adjournment, and we do realize the reason for that is because they're trying to address a lot of the ECB violations. Okay.
Item number 7, 13197BZ, 1600 Boston Road, the Bronx.
Okay, so the applicant has provided an updated landscaping plan, and that they are proposing to remove the landscaping as part of the overall improvement of the site, and given what weather we are in, I really do not think this is a time for us to do any landscaping. With regards to the noise attenuation, the applicant is proposing to provide acoustic fence noise especially along the southern and the eastern lot line. And this new fence would be 6 feet, will have a 6 to 8 foot of evergreen shrubs in front of it. The sign analysis also, I do have actually a comment on the sign analysis that two sign analysis charts were submitted as part of the last submission, and both have different total signage surface area number. One says 147 versus 157, and the total non-illuminated signage is stated as 61 square feet in one, and the other one is 91. And it's not for two different street frontages, it is for the same street frontages, unless I'm reading it correctly, incorrectly. So first of all, the applicant should provide sign analysis for each street frontage, and they should also include it in this, I think for the site plan dated 10/9/2018, A051 sheet, the total signage adds up to 117.63 square feet, so which is much less than that shown in the sign analysis chart. So please go back and look at the sign analysis chart provided for each street frontage and make sure it is consistent with what's shown in the A051 sheet, or both the documents should be consistent. With regards to the acoustic fence, to build that and then to put the landscaping afterwards, I'm not sure it's going to be beneficial. If the rest, the commissioners are okay. One, if the sign analysis chart provided tomorrow seems to be fine, I would like to want to close it with conditions that they provide the landscaping and the acoustic fence once the weather improves as part of the larger improvement.
Oh, wait, are you saying that you'd like to roll it out on condition that?
Yeah.
So you won't want to hold it?
No.
Get those things installed?
Partly because,
Okay.
you know, the landscaping, the weather is not right. And the acoustic fence, where it's going to be located, there'll be landscaping in front of it. So to do the acoustic fence now and for the landscaping to come in, it may actually ruin the acoustic fence. So I'm not sure it's going to be beneficial for anybody and the results that we want to achieve. So it would be better as part of the larger improvement, both are done together. Is that, if the
I
zoning-
agree with you, because especially since the building is being enlarged.
Right.
So
It's
there's
gonna be-
going to be construction vehicles rolling around on the site, so I agree. The landscaping should be done after.
Okay. And the acoustic fence also.
Yes, and I have the same question for the signage analysis, because it's definitely different on the form, which doesn't seem to be broken out by frontage, because it's not saying which frontage on either of those forms, and also doesn't agree with the plans. And so I think that the plans are probably the most accurate, and so they need to go to the plans and then record it on a signage analysis form for Seabury Place, and then one for Boston Road, and then they will probably correct all the inconsistencies, because I have a different total than even you have, so something's not right there.
Okay. So, okay, so I think we have given a clear direction. Right.
Go on.
Item number 8, 30909BZ, 2173 65th Street, Brooklyn. 2173?
Sorry, just give me 1 second. Actually, this one, my question is more for Commissioner Otley Brown as to if you're satisfied with the narrative that has been provided.
Yes, because the narrative notes the decrease in construction costs for the removal of the elevator is actually balanced out by the lower sales prices, because the project is now a walk-up, and so the return didn't really budge, so I'm actually fine with this.
Any other comments?
Item number 9, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Item number 9, 163 to 165 14A, 502, 504, 506 Canal Street, Manhattan.
Okay. So this is a compliance hearing. So the applicant has provided most of the documents that we had requested from the last hearing, and they have provided the recorded restrictive deck for each of the properties. They have provided copies of the flood insurance policy, and the flood insurance amount is consistent with the applicable coverage amount per NFIP. And the policy term is till 2019. They provided bank statement providing an evidence that an escrow has been created for each one of the properties. The recorded deck also states the emergency action plan, and specifically it states all that we had required, that tenants not be allowed to remain in the property or access in the event of an emergency action plan, and they have that there will be minimum one training that will be held, and there was one that was held in June and July, and everybody was made aware. We do have affidavit from the tenants. And actually, this is just a clarification I have. Though we have 3 buildings, there are 2 tenants, one occupying 2 buildings. I just want to clarify that clarification. And photos of the emergency access plan posted in the common area has been provided. And the affidavit from the tenants state that they do get phone or email or about flash flood warning, and that there has been no damage to the site so far. And they did provide samples of lease riders. Only thing that we don't have is the CFO. And I believe they're in the process of it, and there's been some issues in getting that from DOB, so if the applicant can just walk us through that. Any questions, comments?
No questions.
Item number 10, 2016-4150BZ, 667 Grand Street, Brooklyn.
This has been
Being
administratively adjourned?
Right. New case is item number 11, 21997BZ, 13011 North Conduit, Avenue, Queens, we still need community board on this.
Okay. Do we have a proof of service of the initial application?
Yes.
We do. Thank you. All right. This is an application for a proposed term of extension for 20 years. The term expires in 2019. The applicant, so as I was reviewing the plan, there were a few things that I think are missing that needs to be provided. The previous approved plan had a plant list. I don't see that in this one. They need to include the current plant list and ensure it provides the necessary buffer and coverage per previously approved plan. And they need to provide a sign calculation table in the plan, provide better photos of the landscaping and also the conditions in the rear. I was at the site and the condition in the rear seemed good. It's well maintained, but we don't have adequate photos for those who have not been able to go to the site. So, and for our record also. In addition to the trash enclosure, there is another enclosure and a container. And the plan needs to include that, and they both need to be, I think, covered by a fence. Per approved plan, there should be a 6-foot-high solid concrete block masonry wall abutting the rear lot line to the residences. I wasn't able to detect that from the photos, and my recollection from the site visit, I don't remember seeing it, but they need to confirm it. And if a solid concrete block masonry wall is not there and shouldn't be, they need to tell us what the current condition is and why that should be sufficient. Also, what is there was a conditional neg deck that was issued at the last one, and it was with regards to DOT. That is, DOT will be investigating the feasibility of implementing the traffic mitigation. I don't know if that has been closed, resolved. I'm not sure how we handle that, so we just need to kind of get response to that. There is a partial stop work order, 14 DOB violations, 13 of which have been dismissed. There is one active from 2018, which is regarding a plumbing job. So, and there is an ECB violation, which I think was cured. I'm not sure. We do not have a community board recommendation on this one.
We don't have one yet.
No.
He's going to reach out.
Okay, great. So those are my notes.
The signage analysis form should be broken out by frontage and matched on the plans. I also went to the site, and I thought the site was in pretty good condition. If anything, some of the landscaping along the border with the residential on, I guess that's the northern lot line, might be mature, and so it doesn't exactly screen in the way it was supposed to screen because they've grown. But it'd be great if they could, I agree with you, give us photos of that landscaping border in the direction of the home that's right next door, so we could see actually how well it screens or if it needs to be filled in. And I did not see a concrete block wall there.
Okay.
But I think I saw a storage container to the east of the site.
Right. There is a trash enclosure and there is a large storage container which actually goes a little bit into the rear, and there is another little container place. So there are 3 such. And so we need to understand what those are, and those need to be fenced off.
I agree.
Any?
No, my only comment was about the photos. They are kind of old, so we need to get some more updated ones.
Okay. Thank you.
Item number 12, 3509BZ, 345, 347 East 103rd Street, Manhattan.
Sorry, just give me.
We have proof of service.
Yes.
We have proof of service of initial filing and notification of hearing.
Yep, we do. Thank you. The applicant is requesting a 10-year extension of term to operate a contractor's establishment. There has been no change in the use or the built floor area. one certificate of occupancy was issued for both the tax lots in 2012, and per the documents submitted by the applicant, there are 2 ECB violations, and based on the recent BIS search, it seems one of the violations was cured, the other one was resolved, as there is one DOB violation which seems to have been dismissed based on the most recent DOB database. So, and we have a letter from the community board from chair, and it's not clear. The chair of the board states that the community board supports the application. I don't have the vote count, so.
I'll reach out again.
Yeah, thank you. Any comments?
Appeals calendar, continued hearing items. Item number 13, 2017 5A through 2017 7A. This is Sharretts Road in Staten Island, and this is being adjourned.
Okay.
Item number 14, 2017 276A, 96 Industrial Loop, Staten Island.
Oh, can I?
What that is?
Okay, we're back on the record, ladies and gentlemen, for the interruption, for fire drill. Appeals calendar, continued hearing items. Item number 13, 2017 5A through 2017 7A, 620A, 620B, 620C, Sharretts Road, Staten Island.
This was adjourned to address DEP's comments. I do want to let the applicant know that when, at the September hearing, note, the board had asked that a note to the drawing be added regarding the proposed sanitary system to be built in the fire access to be maintained by the property owner and not by the City of New York. It was a DEP comment, and I just want to make sure that that would be included in the next submission.
You want it on the plan, noted on the plan?
Yes, that's what DEP wanted. I just want to alert the applicant that they take care of that. So when we get the DEP approval, we should have that.
Right,
comment.
they have to submit the certified sanitary sewer plan? Yes, hold on, please. Sorry, back on the record.
Okay.
Item number 14, 2017 276A, 96 Industrial Loop, Staten Island.
So we do have a DEP sign-off on this, and we have the revised plan, which is dated 1/15/2018, but we have 2 different dated plans. There is dated plan of 1/15/2018 for A001 and 5/30/2018 for plan A002, which includes the proposed 5-foot wide sidewalk. So please make note of that, Council. Otherwise,
We have FDNY in there.
FDNY, I think we did.
We're good, right?
I think we were,
We were only awaiting DEP.
we only
Okay,
needed
fine.
a DEP sign off.
Okay. Item number 15, 2017 282A, 148 Sprague Avenue, Staten Island.
Okay.
Thank you, Darrell.
So the applicant has provided driveway and easement declaration, which has been revised. It has removed the reference to maintenance of utility by municipal agencies. It has provided access to emergency vehicle. The document also says that it will provide identification signage for the rear home at the intersection of the driveway at Sprague Avenue, Sprague, right? Yeah, and no parking signage per FDNY requirement would be included. They also have submitted a revised plan. Now, as per the revised plan, though I have to say the date on the revised plan is still showing 2017, 10/6/2017. As per the revised plan, instead of 3 tandem parking, which was our biggest concern, for the rear home, number 3 per drawing, it has been now revised, and now there are 2 tandem parking spaces. And the third parking spaces is provided in front of home number 3 and behind house number 2, where now there will be 3 perpendicular parking spaces, 2 for home number 2 and 1 for home number 3. Also, the drawing has been revised to note that note number 4 with regards to HOA has been eliminated, and Otherwise, the zoning chart has been provided. GCL hardship argument was provided. Commissioner Shetta?
Shibata.
Sorry,
Shibata.
Shibata. I'm so sorry. Commissioner Shibata.
Sorry.
I'm looking at
I know.
Mr. Shetta. Sorry. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I am.
And restrictive deck, I reviewed it. I think it's okay.
Yeah, it addressed all of the issues from the last hearing.
Do you have any comments?
I have no comments.
Okay. Thank you.
Zoning calendar, item number 16, 8915BZ, 92 Walworth Street, Brooklyn.
This has been, they provided the revised bulk and the specifics of that we wanted the stair bulkhead to be brought down and be parallel to the riser of the stair, which has been done. I am satisfied with it. Any comments on this? No. Commissioners? I think we would vote with conditions, and the condition would be no balconies or window cages projecting over the street line, and no cooking and sleeping in the cellar, only to be used as an accessory to dwelling units above.
May I go on, or?
Yes, please.
Continued hearing item, item number 17, 30214BZ, 45-04 Francis Lewis Boulevard, Queens.
Just give me a second. The plans have been revised, but it still has the old date. It's dated 1/29/2016. I really don't have any other comments. If we do approve it, I would like to put a condition that is signage only as per the approved plan, and no signage along 45th Avenue frontage. Landscape should be maintained and replaced as needed, and no parking on the sidewalks. Valet parking is to be provided, and proposed curb cuts will need to comply with DOT and DOB requirements. And this is the proposed curb cut on Francis Lewis Boulevard. Any other?
Do you want them to revise the date on the plans?
It would be great if they can. I think we should, because this is an old plan and we have had so many iterations of this, they should just revise the entire set with the new date.
Item number 18, 26315BZ, 4547 Little Clove Road, Staten Island.
This
There is
is-
a request for adjournment?
Yes.
Or is it an administrative adjournment? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Oh, it's an administrative adjournment or it was a request? They requested it. Okay.
Item number 19, 2016 4265BZ, 25 Bleecker Street, Manhattan.
Okay. So the owner has provided some additional documents, and I know our commissioners have a lot of comments on this. I just want to kind of highlight what way I have been thinking about this project and my approach to the review of this project, and that is specifically keeping in mind the extent of the waiver that the application is requesting, and that is a use waiver, use of the ground floor and the cellar floor for commercial use, and use of the upper floors for residential use, and a waiver of the rear yard requirement of 20 feet. The site is a very narrow site. It's a 20-foot deep, 20-foot wide, and a very shallow lot, 68 feet deep. And if this, the applicant has come before us with the argument of an obsolescence, I was looking at it more like, if this site was a vacant site, would it make some of the arguments that we typically look for hardship? We have, in many cases in this neighborhood, have acknowledged that a narrow lot is not a viable commercial use. This is a 20-foot wide lot. On top of it, this is a very shallow lot. It's 68 feet deep. So a typical 20 by 100, one could even get a 20 by 70 foot footprint. Here, the footprint would be, with a 20-foot setback requirement, rear yard requirement would get 20 by 48 or something like that. So it's it would result in a very unusual, narrow floor plate that would not that we typically do not see, and we have accepted that that it is not a reasonable footprint for a commercial operation. So allowing a residential use would be reasonable. We have also seen cases where in the case of shallow lots, we have allowed for reduction in the rear yard waiver. And in this case, that is one of the requests. So I think looking at it from that point of view, keeping the obsolescence argument aside, I think this project does merit the variance for a use and for a reduction in the rear yard. The question now becomes is what is the extent of the reduction? In my mind, the extent of the reduction from the rear yard. And that hinges on two elements. One is the return, and the other one is the neighborhood. The applicant has provided quite a bit of documentation with regards to the neighborhood context, especially with regards to the rear yard. And I think, yes, there is not your typical, this is not a typical 200 by lot. It's an irregular shaped block. And on top of it, most of these buildings are pre-1961 buildings, so the rear yards vary in depth anywhere from 2 feet to 12 feet to 20 feet. And given the shallowness of this lot, the question what I would like us to review is what is the reasonable of the one from in terms of return? Should it be 16 feet or should it be 14 feet? And I think an as-of-right building, a 7-story building would be allowed. And in this case, what the applicant is proposing is a 6-story penthouse with a height that is a little bit less than actually what the as-of-right building would be. And the FAR is slightly more, and which is slightly more being an as-of-right building would have a 4.98 FAR, whereas the proposed one is 5 FAR. So it's really a 0.02 FAR difference, and that is probably a reduction because of the reduction in the rear yard depth. So overall, as I'm looking at it from the uniqueness point of view, I think it meets it. I will defer to Commissioner Otley Brown with regards to the B, and I think from a neighborhood character, it definitely would meet it, even with not providing a 20-foot rear yard. It's a question of the degree of the rear yard depth. And LPC has approved the building, so in terms of the neighborhood context of the building form of it, it definitely fits. And so with that, Commissioner.
Well, I'm actually going to let Commissioner
Okay,
Shifta
I think that's
speak first
good.
because he
That's
has
fine.
more comments about the A finding.
Okay.
I had comment last hearing regarding the construction cost estimate for the proposed scenario and for the as-of-right as well. And during the last hearing, we asked for feedback regarding the obsolescence and whether it's feasible to fix the existing building or not. And we asked that this should be proven financially. I got an additional cost estimate for a scenario called as-of-right. This is the fixing of the existing building. In general, I didn't get what I was looking for when it comes to the details, the degree of detailing of the construction cost estimate, like the quantities. I get really very nice set of drawings. Thank you for that. That was like extensive effort on the engineering side. But for example, I got a foundation plan, and when I wanted to like look at the quantity of the concrete footings, whether the quantity in the cost estimate is legit or not, I tried to even estimate the quantity myself, but it was no single dimension on that drawing. I don't know why would somebody like provide a drawing without dimensions or any information on it. But however, I had to scale that drawing and I had to look at some other quantities, and I believe the disagreement between my estimate and the submitted construction cost estimate still on the like support the idea that the return is not feasible on fixing the existing building. So let's like move forward from that position. And now looking at the construction cost estimate for the proposed scenario, I still see excavation support cost items, I still see excavation, I still see mat foundation. And the last hearing, we did clearly ask for drawings, we did ask for the geotech report, we did ask for details of the quantities, and still we got nothing on that. I'm not sure if this was submitted, probably we could have looked at it, and probably we could have closed it tomorrow and voted on it, but
I don't think
that's what I got.
I definitely don't think we could have voted on it, but it seems from what you're saying, we have outstanding. Do you have more?
We do. Regarding the hardship, I agree with Vice Chair regarding the hardship portion when it comes to the narrowness, but I believe this should be married to the fact that the building is obsolete, or the finding that the building is obsolete. I was looking at one of the radius maps, and I can see that we have similar lots within the radius. So within the circle, I believe I can count like 4 sites. My opinion is the only thing that distinguish this subject site from other sites is that the building is structurally deteriorating and it's tough to fix, or it's costly to fix. So knowing that, we could look at it as a narrow, shallow lot that's gonna be very costly to fix it and bring it up to speed to similar condition like the other buildings. But we cannot ignore like the part of the structural status of the building.
I want to, did we send out the sample cost estimate sheet? Okay, so this is for the applicant pool. Last week, BSA sent out a sample cost estimate sheet specifically for this project. Please do use that sample cost estimate sheet to provide the details that Commissioner Shetter referred to, and that would help you and us in moving the application and understanding the cost, which is a critical part in determining the extent of the degree of the variance that should be granted.
I'll also just note that after that went out, there were some comments the board received about maybe the high threshold that's now being requested in these cost estimate sheets. We have heard those comments and others, and we are planning on having a meeting with.
I wanna please comment on that. I did see 3 emails, like a feedback to the template that we issued, and it was like, it sounds like it was a scary thing that we issued this, and I hear things like, are you asking now for a detailed construction set of drawings? And the answer is no, we're not asking for construction drawings. And if you go back to the administrative notice that we issued early in 2018, you can see there that we asked for supporting documents that support your quantities. And in the notes back then, we detailed supporting documents too. It could be, I start from up top, it could be construction drawings. If you have construction drawings and you want to submit them to us, I'm not going to say no. But it could be construction drawings, it could be schematic drawings. Even I said it could be sketches. If you have your structure, I understand like the majority of the projects that come to the BSA are still in the like feasibility study stage. I'm not gonna ask you to prepare construction drawings at that like very early stage. If you bring me sketches or concepts, but I need these concepts or sketches to be clear so I can read them as an engineer. And in addition to that, if you're gonna put quantity rate, like if somebody's looking at the structural steel for a roof, and he's telling me that the quantity for this roof is 100 tons, and he's not coming up with a single piece of drawing, how would I know that it's 100 tons? But if you submit a construction drawing or even a sketch with some dimensions, with some beam sizes, and give the structural engineer look at this for probably 15 minutes, not 15 days. So it's not a construction drawing, it's a schematic drawing that was looked at by somebody who's an engineer or qualified to do so. Then when I get this and look at it, I have the confidence that this was prepared by somebody who's qualified to do. And in the meantime, I can count on it, looking at the quantity. But we're not looking for like construction drawings, we're looking for something. If you want to submit construction drawings, do it. If you do not, please submit something that we can read and understand.
Okay, I looked at the financial report, and there's a new scenario for an as-of-right existing renovation for an as-of-right showroom and office use, and that's set against the new as-of-right office building, and actually, neither one works. They submitted backup for the office market in an office market report that supports that their rents and their vacancy assumptions are more or less accurate, so I'm okay with that. The office vacancy is 10%, and although most of the Midtown office vacancies hover between 7.7% and 8%, this is in the southernmost part of Midtown South, and it's an area that's not known for its office buildings, so I would agree that an assumption of 10%, which is only a little larger, is actually appropriate here. The office cap rate used is 6%. When you actually look at the equation of the two scenarios, the two office scenarios with the development costs and then the value, even if the development costs were lowered by a couple of $100,000, it still would not make the equation equal out, and that suggests that a lower cap rate would actually be in line for that, and the cap rates are that would actually show a feasible scenario for the office would be along the lines of 2.6 or 3.8, and that's really kind of low for an investor. We have new retail comps that are at grade and legal, and that raised the ground floor rents to $160 a square foot, and the cellar rents at $80 a square foot. There's no change in the assumptions for the showroom rents because the argument is that quality retail tenants don't want to have a legal space, and as-of-right showroom tenants won't pay retail prices. And so those assumptions are $145 a square foot for the first floor and $72.50 a square foot for the cellar, and I'm fine with that. The condominium sales were revised. The indoor space remains the same as previously, but the outdoor space of the two lesser variances for the rooftop gardens are at 50% of interior space, but they're only at 50% of interior space for the roof gardens, but 15% of interior space for the second floor terraces. And I guess the argument there is that those second floor terraces have no views and questionable sunlight because they're in a very cavernous rear yard situation.
So you're okay with that?
Yes, so I'm more or less okay with that. So the question then at this point is, which size rear yard works? Is the proposed the minimum variance, or is perhaps a 16-foot rear yard a minimum variance? And while the annual returns for these are between 5.3 and like 6.5% for the proposed, the overall returns between the two of them are almost 15% for the 16-foot rear yard and almost 20% for the proposed. Given the fact that at this point in time, the development costs are not set in stone and actually could be decreased even more than they've already been decreased. And also the fact that I'm not sure that the 30-month construction/development/sales period is an appropriate assumption, given that this building is really rather small and there are really only 3 apartments that need to be sold at the end of the day. I would be guided more by the overall return, in which case I think that the 16-foot rear yard is actually the minimum variance here, especially given the fact that the larger the rear yard could be, the better this is in this area, because it is a very shallow lot on a very shallow block, and so the more space that we could put between this building's rear wall and the building behind, the better served this community would be.
So in other words, are you saying that by having a 16-foot rear yard, it would, well, you didn't say that, but would it also result in an improved sales price for the condo units by having a 16-foot rear yard as opposed to?
I don't think that 3 feet actually has an impact on the sales price of the units. However, I think it does have an impact on the experience, the living experience, both here and along the rest of the corridor in the center.
So it's you're balancing out the neighborhood and the overall cost.
Yes.
Return. Okay. Okay.
I have nothing further to add. I think that.
And so I got everybody's comments here? Yep, okay.
Yep, same comments from last hearing regarding the cost estimate for the proposed.
So the applicant, please listen to the comments from the last hearing with regards to some of the detailed comments that were provided by Commissioner Sheta in providing, in updating the revised information.
Go ahead.
Item number 20, 2017-314BZs, 1571 McDonald Avenue, Brooklyn.
Give me a second, I'm sorry. Okay. I just want to state that that the last time when we had this hearing, it was one of the longest days we had, and this was one of the last items. And I think we were all little tired, and we relied on the fact that what we had stated at the review session was given, and what we then focused on just the real critical part, the threshold question at the public hearing. And the threshold question at the public hearing was more with regards to, can you have a parking use, which was the access ramp in the rear, is it permitted? And we had asked the applicant to get a read from the DOB, and they did. DOB has approved a ZRD1 with conditions dated, well, actually, hold on, what am I reading? No. So there was a DOB approval that was made, and it had conditions, and I think we need to include those conditions into our approval. And the conditions that DOB has stated, I'm going to read that, is that no parking space shall be located on the roof of the building directly above the mezzanine. All parking spaces shall be located within 30 feet in height from base plane. Parapet walls shall not be more than 4 feet in height from the roof level. However, I think the parapet wall that is proposed here is 6 feet, so at least that's what I saw in the drawing, and which is consistent with the requirements of 36-56A2, where it says lighting and screening, a 6-foot-high parapet wall be provided. So I just want a clarification of that. The applicant has provided a revised plan, and they have provided some details with regards to the lighting. Those were the comments that we had raised at the review session, and our reason for raising those questions were we wanted to make sure those lights were not going to create an issue with the neighborhood. The reason we are focusing on the lighting here is because this is this is a standalone PC facility which has a parking requirement, and the parking requirement is being fulfilled by providing the parking above on the rooftop. So in its totality, this is being reviewed, and so the plan submitted shows that there are 3-foot-high. There are lights located along the edge of the perimeter, along the parapet wall, up to a height of 3 feet. In addition, there are light poles that are also proposed that are located in the center of the site, and as per the specs provided, the overhead lights are at a height of 3.5 feet. I think the chair was very particular. She wanted to make sure that these overhead lights do not exceed the height of the parapet wall, and specifically the lights emanating from that not spill out beyond the boundaries of the parapet wall, and not be visible also. So I think I'm still not quite clear from the drawings if those are being met. So if the applicant can provide those documents and help us clarify that, that would be great. We had also asked that the trash enclosure, because this is a spa, there will be food that will be served, that the trash enclosure be contained, and that has been provided. I would like the applicant to also clarify what the hours of operation of the pickup, and that the trash is not going to be sitting there outside for an undue amount of time for garbage pickup, and how that pickup will be carted out. Those need to be clarified. I think those were my primary comments. Are there any comments from?
They said that they were going to turn the rooftop lights off when
Yes,
the building
thank
is
you.
closed, and I found, okay, that's at least good. So
Yes.
that'll help.
And that would be one of the conditions also,
Okay.
that they will have to turn the rooftop when the operation is. And it would be only accessory to this.
What would only be accessory?
The parking space will be only accessory to the PCE and not to any of the adjoining, because I think it's part of a zoning lot, which has another building, I'm not sure. So this should be only accessory to this operation. And the hours of operation of this use should drive when the lights are turned off.
Okay.
Madam Vice Chair, is this the one where they had some parking that was not part of their parking on the plan, and we wanted to make a note on there, am I correct?
So this has some empty spaces in the plan where no parking is permitted, which is what DOB has made as part of the conditions. The drawings don't indicate clearly where, but we have to infer based on review of the plan. It would be ideal if, there's a mark on the applicant basically puts
Some shading or something?
shading, and when constructing it, they also stripe it out, saying, with yellow, saying no parking with signs. That way everybody knows you cannot park there, especially over the mezzanine, and when the ramp comes up, you could put like a yellow stripe saying no parking. And that way, it's very clear, even if you have an overspill, that's a no parking, and you can then inspect and ensure that it's being kept that way. Otherwise, it's not very clear.
Okay.
Also, it looks like there's a roll-down gate to the parking ramp, and so it'd be helpful if that's actually kept closed after hours, so nobody can access it.
Good point.
Ready to move on?
Yes.
New cases, item number 1, 2016-4272BZ, 1432 Second Avenue, Manhattan. This is a RIP Fitness special permit application, PCE.
Okay, just give me, so we do have proof of service of initial application and notice of hearing to officials. Community did vote to approve 41-0. Just my question is if the residents were notified. This is a legalization of RIP Fitness, which is located on the first floor. It's been operating since November of 2016. The hours of operations are 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days. I have my note, and I'm trying to understand why I said that, so my apologies. I said that the statement is contrary with the statement of findings where these spaces are located on the first floor, which is, there's tenants only, okay, so somewhere in the statement, it says that tenants only playroom, exercise room, laundry room, mechanical equipments are on the first floor. In the same statement, in a different page, it says it's on the second floor. So just need to make sure it's consistent with the build condition and with the plan. Those were really my comments. DOI had no issues. FDNY had a letter dated 2016, 9/1/2016, objecting. That is, they asked that the PW1 be revised, TM1 to show installation of manual and automatic smoke detection and sprinkler for alarm system, and they submit a CO with fitness center. There are no violations. There are 5 ECB violations, but not related to PCE. It's all related to elevator violations. So those are my comments on it. Are there?
No, my only comment is they should show proof of notification of the tenants.
Yes.
Like a photo
Photo of
of
it,
the
right.
notice
Yeah.
in the hallway.
Item number 2, 2017-284BZ. This is a special permit for an Orange Theory Fitness.
Okay, this is also legalization of a PCE. We do have proof of service of initial application and notice of hearing to officials. This fitness center has been operating since March 1st, 2018. This would be located partly on the first floor and in the cellar. The hours of operations are 5 to 9 p.m. Monday to Thursday, 5 to 8 p.m. Friday, and 7 to 1 p.m. Saturday, and 8 to 2 on Sunday. They did retain an engineer for sound attenuation, and as per the recommendation, an 80 dBA or less. Is that the right number, or was that a typo? Typically, we see a 40? 40.
45, I think.
Right. So I think that may be a typo. They have installed suspended spring isolated gypsum, acoustic ceiling, 1/4 thick Plytic, genie mat fit, 8 rubber flooring in the fitness area. And the music system is programmed to limited volume for music and mic. The site is sprinklered, fire alarm is connected to the central monitoring station, sprinkler and fire alarm plans have been provided, and affidavit of installation has been provided. So if FDNY, we haven't received a letter from FDNY, but I would just like FDNY to make sure for both of this project and the previous one, to make sure FDNY is okay. This building is ADA, the facility would be ADA accessible. There's a separate elevator that is, would be accessible from the first floor to the cellar. Department of Investigation had no issues on this one. There are no violations. There's one ECB violation, and that is the occupancy is contrary to CO, which will be clarified once this is approved. Community Board, the Land Use and the Waterfront Committee of Community Board 6 waived its review, and CB6 will not be issuing any comments. My question is whether tenants notified, and if they were notified, if they can provide proof of photos of that. And I really had no other comments.
No comments.
Okay.
Item number 3, 2018-5BZ, 306-308 East 126th Street, Manhattan.
Sorry, give me just 1 second. Okay. So we have proof of service of initial application and notice of hearing to officials. This is in a flood zone, and so my question is, do we need a ZRD1 and CCD1? This is a commercial use. It's a question I have. The applicant, these are 2 interior lots, and the applicant is proposing an auto repair building with the 0 rear yard. The building backs up against the exit ramp of, I think it's the...
RFK Bridge?
Right, thank you, RFK Bridge. And my question was that the applicant needs to provide a little bit more description about the nature of the operation. Will there be vehicle repair on both floors? Because the plan wasn't quite clear if the second floor is a mezzanine or it's a full floor and there's an elevator ramp that is coming up where as the vehicle to be repaired will be brought up and there'll be repair happening on the second floor also. To me, I couldn't quite clearly read the plan, so if that could be clarified. And what kind of ventilation is being proposed and where will the vents be located in relation to the existing residential building? So this property has residential apartment buildings to the west, and it has auto-related uses to the east. So even though there are no lot line windows, this building would be lower than some of the apartments that would be facing the back, and I just wanted to know where the venting would be and also want to make sure that the sound inside will be well insulated and it will not be affecting the residents. Those are my comments.
I have no comments. Oh, but I just want to say that the statement did say that it was accessory parking on the second floor and didn't note that there was repairs going on the second floor.
Oh, it did? Mm-hmm. So the accessory parking would be what nature? That anybody can park? So it is operating as an auto repair and a parking lot? Or this would be the place?
Accessory parking, so
So it would be-
accessory implies it's to the primary use, which is the auto repair,
So
and
all the
not
re-
open to the community. So if it is going to be open to the community, then they need to note that.
Right. So in other words, the operation would be that all the vehicles to be repaired would be located on the second floor, and the repair work will be happening on the first floor.
Right, because they don't have a backyard for vehicles awaiting service.
Right. Okay. So I think it goes back to the question, we need a little bit more clarification
Yeah.
with regards to the nature of operation.
Yeah, I have two comments. One of them is regarding the FEMA flood map. I did try to look at the location of the site on the FEMA flood and related to like Google Maps or something. I wasn't able to like exactly locate the site on the FEMA because that FEMA submitted, I believe it was scanned. If they try to like provide us with the original
Okay.
PDF, that would be more like clear. And I believe the site is not in the flood zone. I'm tending to think that it's on the border, but not in the flood zone. It's just, it might be just
Just on the
outside.
edge.
Okay.
Yes, yes. The other two things actually is, the first one is the A finding. I did read the statement and I see in the statement they are talking about there is no foreseeable hazards. We'll take care of everything, kind of language like that. But there is no detail, there are no details on how, like, hazards to the neighborhood will be prevented or mitigated. So I believe they need to, like, explain more on that.
Perhaps they could do that through getting to Vice Chair Chanda's point about the ventilation
Yeah.
and all of
Yeah.
that.
And
Insulation.
Right.
the other thing is regarding the B finding and the term. Can we look into a term on a facility like this?
Special permit.
It's a special permit, so I believe we,
It's, the special permit is to allow bulk special permits typically don't carry.
We cannot.
But we can look into that.
I see.
Yeah, I mean, if
But
you,
what's your concern with the
if
term?
you grant something like this and things do not go as intended, I understand that we can usually hold a compliance hearing, but if they have a term, we're gonna have the authority like to look into the next grant and see whether they were like,
I'll look and see if there's a precedent
Yeah.
for that and if we're allowed to do that under the zoning resolution.
that's all, thank you.
I think also, as part of the environmental review, if the air quality and the sound issue gets picked up, and I'm not sure if that's another way of weighing in on the issues that both Commissioner Chet and I have with regards to the how detrimental, or if at all it will be, to the neighborhood, and it's specifically with the hazmat.
So are you saying
the-
that as it's investigated for
The
air quality and
yeah.
sound?
I'm not sure will it be. That's the
Oh, right,
part.
so the
I'm
first
not
question is
sure.
whether it triggers that
Whether it
review,
triggers it or not.
And if so, what the like kind of attenuation measures could be?
Right.
Okay.
That
Is there environmental review of this application, or is it not? We'll check into
Yeah.
whether.
I believe in the statement, they mentioned something about probably like painting or spraying, so that, I believe
Okay.
we need to look into that.
They have to
Yeah.
provide a spray booth, I think, on site.
And they'd need
so-
permits for that.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, so, okay.
And the spray booth will be on the second floor or on the first floor, right?
I believe it was on the first floor.
I think if the operation is on the first floor, I'm okay with it. My concern would be to what extent that is contained on the first floor and does not
There are residents.
go to the second floor. Because, I mean, the residential units are, I think it's a 5-story walk-up apartment building next to it.
Right, and there's significant residents in that apartment, so if there's,
Thank
you
you.
know, the effect on those tenants, I think, is something that we should
Yeah.
pay close attention to.
Okay. Do you have anything else to add on this?
May I move on?
Yes, please.
Item number 4, 2018, 56BZ, 83 Coleridge Street, Brooklyn, a single-family home enlargement.
Okay. We have proof of service of initial application and notice of hearing to officials. The community board has approved, 30 in favor, 4 against. This is an enlargement of an existing building, and so it would increase the rear yard to 30 feet, which typically we don't see. And the side yard would be reduced to the required 5 foot and 8 foot. The design flood elevation is 13 feet, and the proposed first floor will be located 3 feet above the design flood elevation, so the perimeter wall height will be 21 feet, and the building height would be total of 35. It is located in the flood zone, and it was reviewed by DOB, and as proposed, there's no habitable space in the cellar. I just want the applicant to confirm that the existing cellar below the base plane will be filled, and the new cellar is located at the base plane of 6.94, because the drawing showed that, and this is where the drawing was kind of not clear. I was looking at the existing plan and the proposed plan, and it shows that the base plane of the proposed one of the cellar is at 6.94. And the existing cellar is below the base plane. So I'm assuming that the existing cellar is being filled in, and the new cellar, which is the current first floor, will be located at the base plane and above that. So I just want that to be clarified. And that is also leading to the fact that the base plane elevation on the existing and the proposed plan varies. They have submitted FAR analysis. There are 15 buildings within the 400-foot radius that have greater than 0.9 FAR. And in terms of the lot coverage and the open space, the area is overbuilt. Most of the properties in this area have a higher lot coverage than the required. We typically are asked for rear yard analysis. This building is going to be shaved back to 30 feet. So I really don't think we have much say on how high the building goes in the rear. And I also would like to add that the proposed height is lower than the abutting building. My only clarification is with regards to the cellar and how that is being analyzed in the drawings. Any comments?
I had a question about the lot coverage study, because they say that within 400-foot radius, the average lot coverage of overbuilt properties is 42%. But what about all properties, since the neighborhood character is based on all properties and not a selection that shines the subject in a good light?
Okay. I was eyeballing the plan, and based on that, but it's a fair point. We need a quantity analysis, not a qualitative. Commissioner Shibata, you were going to say something?
No.
Shibata, you were going to say
Supporting
something?
what Commissioner Holly Brown stated.
Okay.
Item number 5, 2018-60BZ, 511 Lexington Avenue, Manhattan. This is a special permit for PCE, Crunch Fitness.
So this is a new PCE. We have proof of service of initial application and notice of hearing to officials. Committee board has voted in favor, 37 in favor, 1 abstained. This is this required an LPC sign-off. We do have the LPC sign-off. Department of Investigation had no issues. We do not have any letter from FDNY. There are no open violations on this site. As I said, this is a proposed PCE to be located on the first floor and cellar. And this is a commercial use. The hours of operation, the existing building is a commercial and a hotel use. I did go to the site. I couldn't open the door. It's a beautiful door. It's a landmark. And that's why Monday to Friday, hours of operation, hours of operations are Monday to Friday, 5 to 11:30 p.m., and Saturday, Sunday, 7 to 9 p.m. applicant is stating that the abatement measures will be installed and it would not exceed 35 dBA, including thick rubber matting. And the fire system is in place. It wasn't clear from the document, and it is going to be ADA accessible. And I guess it's not part of this operation. It would be the common elevator that will be used to access the cellar. I have no other comments, commissioners.
I believe it was just a typo on page 3 of the statement regarding the number of patrons. It mentioned 4,500 to
Of patrons.
5,000. Yeah.
Instead of, it should have been 4,500 to
I believe it's
5,000 regular.
450 to 500.
Oh,
day, or is it per hour?
So typically what it says that their regular membership of Crunch is 4,500 to 5,000. So any Crunch member can
Oh,
go
so
to
this is the
any-
entire population of
Right.
the members, okay.
However, typically at this site, they are projecting 400 to 500 visits per day.
Okay.
Is that what you're
Yes,
referring
it's
to?
clear, yes.
Okay, and that's acceptable?
It is.
Okay.
Okay.
Move on.
Okay.
Item number 6, 2017-43BZ, 140 Hendricks Avenue, Staten Island. It's a variance application for single-family home.
Right. So we do have proof of service of initial application, and we have also received the proof of notice of hearing to officials. Community Board has voted to approve this project, 27 in favor, 5 opposed. The applicant is requesting a side yard open area waiver, which is contrary to Section 23-461C. It is a new construction of a one-family home. So as I was reviewing the findings, my question was with regards to the minimum lot area and lot width. I think for 23-32, minimum lot area or lot width for residences in lower density growth management area is not 2,375 square feet. It is, so that analysis is not consistent. It's because it's, as I read it, it says, in low density growth management area in the borough of Staten Island, following rules shall apply. Where 2 or more buildings that are single or two-family detached or semi-detached residences are located on a zoning lot, the applicable minimum lot area requirements set forth in the table in this section shall be multiplied by the number of such buildings on the zoning lot. And I think we are only proposing 1, and so I'm not sure it's being represented correctly, so that needs to be corrected. With regards to the finance, my question, and Commissioner Kliman, you can help me answer those questions, is, the as-of-right residential would result in a 12-foot wide floor plate. My question was, what is a typical floor plate of a home in the area, and should that be looked at? If they're typically 12 feet, should we be using that as a base, or if most of the floor plates are wider than that, and what they're proposing would result in a, I think, 15-foot wide building, is that a reasonable one? And most of the recent constructions after 2000 was on a 25-foot lot, and those seem to be built as of right. And from the Google Street View, it seems they have narrow floor plate. Specifically, these are 137 Hendricks Avenue, 133, 156, 125, 123, and 121. So all of these were built after 2000 on a lot that is 25 foot, and it seemed like their floor plate was as of right, which would mean that they would have had a similar floor plate as like a 12-foot or something like that. So my question was, should that be looked at?
Absolutely. I think and I think it goes more to the A finding as well, because is this narrowness unique? Well, you have to look at what a 12-foot wide resulting building is in the context of all of the built area, and what the typology of the homes in that area is in terms of detached or attached, and the width as well as the depth. So, I mean, that's one question I had as well, but I also had a question about their narrow vacant lot, don't they have to provide a title search to show that they're in separate ownership?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yes.
And I didn't see that. And also, as to the C finding, I think they also have to provide the building width study to show what the prominent building widths are on that lot size, the 25-foot width lot in that area. And to support that the width that they're proposing is actually within the neighborhood character.
Yeah. This neighborhood, specifically this block front has mix of buildings and some buildings dating much older where they were almost, some of them are zero lot line buildings, some with very little side yard, and the applicant was pretty thorough in providing those details. However, those specific buildings that were built after 2000 kind of stood out because, we're talking about closest to current situation with current market conditions where buildings on these lots were still marketable and viable. And these are actually detached homes, and some of them are 2- and 3-family homes. So, and that's why I do think more clarification needs to be made in light of new construction that has happened in the neighborhood.
Well, I saw conclusory statements in the statement, but I usually like to look at the actual study, and I didn't see the actual study. Is it there? Because I just saw the conclusion, and for me, it's not enough to say, well, most homes in the area have building widths of 21 to 22 feet on lots that are 25 foot wide. I like to see, line by line, this is a 25-foot wide lot, this is a 21-foot wide home, this is a 25-foot wide lot, this is a 19-foot wide home. And then I count it up and see in which favor the data, points.
I think I was looking at one map that showed the buildings and the side yards between each one of the buildings. That's really what I was looking at to see, and maybe that's not sufficient. It needs to cast a wider net.
Yeah, I did a bunch of my own research to try to find whether or not this is unique. I haven't been convinced it's unique by the papers that were by the application that was submitted, and frankly, even the homes in the direct area have the same lot specifications as this lot. So I'd like to see an argument that actually shows uniqueness, because I'm concerned that it might not be something that this application will have.
And now the study they did give us gives us the lot area and the lot width and whether or not the lot is buildable, but it doesn't say anything about the building width if it was buildable to inform us on the character.
Okay. Any other comments?
That's it. Okay, item number 7. Shall I move on? Sorry.
Just give me 1 second.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yes.
Item number 7, 2017-268BZ, 3373, 154th Street, Queens. This is a variance for the construction of a Buddhist temple.
Okay, so we do have proof of service of initial application and notice of hearing to official. I don't think we have the correct community board. In our files, we saw a community board letter, but I think that community board letter refers to the application that we have on, in College Point for the parking lot.
Location.
Because as I started reviewing it, it didn't make sense. So
track
we
that
do
down.
need to get a revised community board letter. We did get 2 objection letters, and the objections were related to increased vehicular traffic, loitering, noise pollution, and decrease in available on-street parking. This is an application for, to allow a 3-story plus cellar place of worship, a Buddhist temple with accessory caretakers unit. The applicant is proposing to provide a cellar space that, sorry, this is my bad. Provide a cellar space that will occupy the full lot with a meditation hall for 74 members, a dining area and a kitchen, not for any catering purposes. Then the first floor will have the main hall for 74 members, will be double height, and it would be acoustically sealed. And the second floor will have book storage, and the third floor, a caretaker's unit for 2 masters who will be living there year around. My question is programmatic related as to how many congregants are going to be using. From the program, it seems most of the congregants are going to be there during the weekends. That's what it seems like. So the hours of operations are open to members on Sundays and holidays. So it seems Sunday is the main day, and where the meditation room is going to be used, and there will be prayer. So my question is the meditation room going to be used simultaneously with the main hall, or is the facility open on non-holidays and Sundays for congregants to come and use the meditation room? And because the document was not clear about what happens during the weekdays. And
I thought it said it was going to be closed.
that's kind of what I concurred, but then my question is, when is the meditation happening? Is it happening at the same time with the main room, and why those two functions are separated? What are the two separate functions that are happening at the same time that requires
Two different rooms.
two different rooms? That's really my main question.
It seemed like the meditation room is part of their prayer procedure of walking around in a circle with the deities.
Okay. So that means once people go to the main room where the main program is happening, then afterwards, then they go to the cellar for meditation.
I thought it actually happened in the reverse, but I could be wrong. And then I thought afterwards they go upstairs and they're spoken to by their leader, and I don't remember what the name of the leadership position is, and that in between there's kind of a meal, because it's an all-day thing.
I guess my question is, why can't the two floors be one? If the same set of congregants are moving from one room to the other, why?
Because I don't think the layout accommodates the chairs in the basement, whereas it does in the worship room. My understanding of the reading is that the congregants move around a lot in the basement
Right, that I
meditation
gathered,
room,
right.
and are still and listening in the first floor room. And so I don't think that the chairs could be accommodated downstairs with the circular space.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but that was my reading of it.
I think a clarification would be helpful. And then the question is, how long the congregants stay in each one of those spaces? And the reason for that question is the main room is going to be a double height room, which is also adding to the height in the rear. And why does that need to be a double height? Why can't the rear of the building be scaled down in a manner that is more in keeping with the use, and why a double height programmatically is needed for that space? Also, with regards to the caretaker's unit. The caretaker's unit on the third floor is not proposing a 30-foot rear yard, and it has a very long 30-foot hallway length, which I think can be reduced, and the building can, the rear yard of a 30-foot can be met. So my questions are, the floor-to-ceiling height for the second floor is 11 feet, which can be reduced to bring the total height down and eliminate the sky exposure plane waiver. As I said, the height of the main hall, double height, it's not clear why that is needed programmatically or for any pedagogical reason. Is that not the right term, or for religious reason?
Reason?
I'm not,
it's
for religious reason,
yeah.
why that would be
Yes.
needed, that needs to be articulated. Otherwise, I really think that height can be reduced, can be sloped to bring the height of the roof down and be more in keeping with the residential.
So would it be helpful to have the architect and representative of the House of Worship to be both here? Or maybe just the architect?
I mean, you're not an architect. and
I'm
that's
not an
something the chair
architect.
Usually engages in that conversation, but if you,
Or maybe the,
if it's not one you want to engage in, maybe a written submission about, that would be
okay,
sufficient
yeah.
for you.
I think a written submission was sufficient. I think this is coming more from a programmatic and less, and the architect therefore is fulfilling the program. So I need to understand the programmatic reason for the spaces, the heights, and why the bulk is being shaped, the caretaker unit being so wide. Those are mostly programmatically driven. I don't think
someone
those
representative
are
of the
architecture driven. So if after that we feel that it's architecture driven, then maybe in the second round of
Okay.
hearings, we can have the architect present. With regards to the congregants accessing, what has been the mode of transportation to the facility that the building, that the congregants are using? How were they commuting to? You can use that as a data source to help us understand how the congregants, future congregants to this future facility will be coming to. And that can also help us understand how much of an impact of a traffic and on-street parking would be to the neighborhood, because I don't think that has been clearly addressed.
But they did have a parking study that was actually really conservatively done because it assumed that every single member is driving their own car and there's no sharing. So even given that, the parking utilization in the area was really quite low. So there's only a 59% utilization in the morning after these parkers park, with 494 on-street parking spaces available.
Was that done for the weekend, Sunday? Or was it for a
Conducted on
typical
Sunday, May 20th, 2018.
28? Isn't that the long weekend? Is that the Labor Day weekend?
Memorial Day.
Memorial Day weekend?
I don't know whether that was Memorial Day weekend, but they could address that. Because they're not supposed to be conducting a study on a holiday.
No, especially not a Labor Day weekend, not a Memorial. So, yeah, so I think I still would like some clarification on the parking utilization study, especially with regards to the date it was done. And if it's a typical Sunday and the utilization has been done in the most conservative manner, thank you for pointing that out. I don't know how I overlooked that. That might be okay. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I had a question about the statement about the as-of-right and the uses that were occupying the cellar. It seems like from the plans, from looking at both sets of plans, that the as-of-right cellar and the proposed cellar are identical. And so if that is true, then why is the as-of-right cellar only accommodating 24 people in the meditation hall, whereas the proposed cellar accommodates 74 people in the meditation hall? So that's my one question.
Yeah, I did see that, and it seemed like the layout was same, but somehow there were more other spaces behind it, right? That was being used for something else? Though the diameter is the same.
Yeah,
I think the diameter
was the same, so that the side is used for storage or, and I forgot what the side was used for.
I think this book storage or something like that.
Right,
Yeah,
library.
library.
But it still looked like it was the same dimensions.
Any other comments? Just one other comment. You noted there was food being served in the building. Is there refrigerated trash storage anywhere on the plans?
I didn't notice that. I don't think I noticed that.
Yeah, so, right, let's see what the proposed adds, looking. No, it's just storage.
Yes, so they do need to provide it.
Okay.
okay, we good? This concludes the public review session for October 29, 2018.